Welcome to the Expansive CEO podcast. I'm your host, Hannah Chapman, founder of Expansive CEO and X Squared Wealth Planning. Buckle in as we explore how to create true prosperity and build a business and a life that expands beyond yourself and makes a dent in the universe. Welcome, everyone, to this episode of the Expansive CEO podcast. I am your host, Hannah Chapman, and today my guest is Mike Bledsoe, who is the CEO at The Mission After, where he's a military veteran reintegration guide. And that goes in a lot of different directions. And today we're going to talk about how what we are experiencing on the inside, what's happening in our subconscious, really shows up on the outside in our actual lived experience. And so, Mike, thank you so much for being here. I would love for you to share a little bit about your story and how you got to where you are now.
Thank you for having me. Yes, it's interesting. What shows up internally comes out externally. I was and working with veterans primarily. I had a coaching session with somebody about a year ago, and we got down to all war starts inside the hearts of men, and to think that when we externalize war, we're like, oh, the war is happening because of this or this or this or this, and it really comes down to, there's a lack of peace internally that is not, because it's not present. It leaves room for war to be present, and so a lot of my work is because of that. I've found peace, and I want to bring peace to others. I served in the military from 2001 to 2005. I got out, had a difficult time, ended up finding my way into business, started some CrossFit gyms that I had to learn. I slept in my gym for a while. I was broke. Had no idea what I was doing. I was a reluctant entrepreneur, is what I call it. And that I knew I wanted to have a gym because I loved working out and I loved showing other people how to train and eat. But the business side of the house really didn't interest me. It took me about 2 years of suffering where I thought, well, I'm either going to have to get a job or, and I really looked at some jobs. I was looking at working at AutoZone. I was like, oh, I like cars too. I could do AutoZone.
Not the same.
I look at myself from then to now. I'm like, wow, what if I had gone the AutoZone route? Yeah, that wouldn't have lasted long. So I decided I choose to learn about business, even though to me, business and marketing was like a dirty word at the time. And so um, uh, I chose to learn business, and sure enough, as soon as I started learning how things work, I was able to achieve better things in my business, and started a YouTube channel in 2012 with a podcast, and had a lot of success with that. Um, and still was really unsatisfied with my life, and I got into personal development. I started going to business and marketing conferences. And at those conferences, I started meeting people, and I started hearing this recurring message of, you are the limiter of the growth of your company. So whatever business you're running, it's only going to be able to grow as much as you're able to grow. And I really didn't know what that meant at the time. I was like, oh, I just got to learn more stuff. And I did okay. I made, I wasn't making six figures personally at the time. It was, $50,000-$60,000 a year, which I was living in Memphis, Tennessee, which was fine. But when I got into the personal development piece and I started saying yes to invitations, I would get on a plane and go somewhere and do some personal development work. I simultaneously discovered psychedelic mushrooms, and that combination of the personal development work plus the psychedelic mushrooms, within a year, I was experiencing more connection and intimacy with friends and family, clients, and my business online took off. I started making more money than I had ever imagined I would be making. and it really all coincides, like, all in that same year, 2013. Oh, personal development work, uh, having a lot of introspection, through intentional use of psychedelics, and, it was a big game changer, and I continued. I couldn't get enough. I was hooked on personal development and leadership training, and, I did that for several more years, and in 2016, I thought, wow, I noticed that a lot of my veteran brothers and sisters from the military could really use this. So I started, while running my businesses, I started helping by mentoring other veterans and putting together little retreats. And so every 6 to 12 months from 2016 until this past year, I would just do some pro bono work and just here and there. And it seemed like I was able to help maybe 10 veterans a year, and in a way that was profound for them and satisfying for me. And then in the last about 8 months, it just hit me like a ton of bricks. And I got this really loud message of go all in with veterans. Like,
Mm.
go in and drop all the other business. I had a real estate business. I had an online consulting business and all this stuff, um, which some of those things are still running, but there's not as much pursuit in me trying to build it. And
Mhm.
so a lot of my attention went into working with veterans and uh, becoming very aligned with that work. And everything's just uh, consultants show up, advisors, people that want to send me clients, and just all the channels opened up and just started flooding in a way I've never experienced before. So having that, listening to that message come in and go, this is what you're supposed to be doing, and saying, okay, I trust, I'm going to do this, and feeling that alignment occur and my own passion welling up, and then watching the universe conspire for me and for that success has been really amazing.
Mm. Oh my gosh, that like the timeline there is what I think is really powerful and impactful to really consider. I mean, we're in 2024 right now, right? And you said you went into the military in 2001,
That's right.
right? And so this is like it's just like pulling apart like the journey of life and how, you know, those early years of entrepreneurship being really difficult and going through massive changes, right? That people coming out. That's what I'm like connecting to as well right now, especially on the veteran side. I'm not a veteran, but I do have a younger brother who was in the military, who still is in the Army Reserves,
Hmm.
um, I believe, but he was in the Army for multiple tours multiple tours through Iraq, when Fallujah was falling, was deployed to Haiti after one of their really terrible earthquakes, um, and just has been through a lot, seen a lot of, the worst of humanity, the hardships of humanity, and then coming back and having to, like you said, like reintegrate into society. And I feel like there aren't a lot of tools. There's not a lot of support for how much you hear, touting of support for veterans and different things. There's not a lot of actual on the ground. Like, how do you come back in and reintegrate in a way that, like, I love the way you said it, that you can find peace within yourself
Hmm.
after having been through so much not peace, right?
Yeah, I think the people that have been to war get to be the experts on peace.
Mm,
Right? We get to make that movement. It's we Other people may know peace, but they may not be the experts on it. If you've seen war, then you go, oh, okay, well, I get to be the expert on that. I see the spectrum,
mhm.
and it's not an easy path to go from war to peace. It takes a lot of diligence, and and it's totally worth it for each individual. And um, I mean, my mission on this planet is world peace, which is a really big bite, and I love it because I know that I can do this until the day I die, and I'm super happy about that. And the way I see it is, if we can bring peace to the people who conduct the wars, then we have a chance to find peace.
Mm. I I am 100% in support of this mission, right? This your heart um here. And so when you were saying that, kind of the personal growth side of you can only your company can only grow. I think these two thoughts go together. Your company can only grow as much as you grow. I had a very similar experience. I went to a conference once, and one of the quotes that I heard and I wrote down, and I was like, I don't really get it yet, but I feel like I need to listen to this more, and I now have it like on my desktop at all times, is the degree to which a person can grow is directly proportional to the amount of truth they can accept about themselves without running away. And
Mm,
that's Leland Val Vanderwall. Um, and that, like, when I first heard it, I was like, "Ugh, what does that mean? What does that it means something, and I need to hold on to it, but I'm not sure what it means yet." And the more I sat with it over years and years, right? And came back to it and contemplated again and had those experiences of sitting with something about myself that was painful to
mhm,
realize, or that I didn't want to see, or that I was like, "Oh, I don't, I'm not showing up the way that I want to, or I'm not experiencing things on the outside that I want to be experiencing," right? That's the more I could sit with that without running away.
mhm. Yeah, and
That's
there's
that's where it
there's
came from.
there's one part which is the story about ourselves, right?
Mm,
This like, oh, okay, I have this story about me. Can I look at that story about myself, about my past, or about who I am? And that's one thing. But what I find is we keep digging and we go, well, what's the feeling?
mhm,
What's the feeling underneath that? And we don't run away from stories. We run away from feelings. There's a feeling that don't I'm judging, and I don't like it. And so I'm going to do all sorts of, I may find myself getting really busy in my business, or I might find myself I might be going and working out in order to dissipate that energy. Uh, I know a lot of entrepreneurs, they find themselves, if they miss a day at the gym, they, that's their therapy, because they're dissipating an energy, an emotion that they don't know how to be present with.
mhm,
And uh, it's what I found is, knowing myself means that I get to acknowledge, be with, and love every single feeling and emotion that arises. And if I can do that, then these stories about myself that I'm looking at I can become less attached to them, and I can see things much more objectively. And so this knowing yourself, and knowing, like, when I know myself, I go, oh, what's that feeling? Am I going to try to drink that feeling away? Am I going to try to work this feeling away? Am I going to try to work out this feeling away? Uh, and if any of those things are present, then there's something about me in which I'm not loving, and which means I'm not being present with it, I'm avoiding. And so, yeah, I find that to be where a lot of the gold is at, is if we can be present with that experience. You're talking about the truth, right? The
mhm,
truth of how I feel right now is, if I have a feeling and I try to avoid it, now I'm avoiding the truth.
right. Mm, yes, yeah, that the thing that's like popping up as you're saying this is one of the things I've been working on a lot over the last several years as well. It is to be present with feelings as they arise. Right.
Hmm.
One of the things I learned about myself, I was a very I'm a very sensitive person. I feel a lot, but as a child, I was very sensitive, and often like over overwhelmed, overstimulated,
Mhm.
and I would withdraw. I would withdraw, I would go into my room, I would shut the door, I would, like, not talk to anyone, right? So that was my way of protecting, like, "Oh, things are it's too I'm feeling too much, there's too much here for me to take in, so I'm gonna withdraw within myself and shut down." And
Mhm.
so what I've experienced over the last several years in opening that back up, and this is where for me that, you know, looking at the truth of myself or being able to accept a lot of it is what you're saying. It's those feelings that were suppressed, that were repressed for so long that when they come back up, letting them be there, letting myself feel them
Mhm.
and not making it wrong, just letting it be, right? So it could look like I had a conversation with my husband yesterday where something was coming. It was a beautiful conversation. Um, and I was sharing something that I had felt that, like, oh, I had maybe miscommunicated in the past. And he said, oh, it's okay. It's in the past.
Mhm.
And for me, I was like, no, it's actually it's present. It's here, right? Like that feeling is coming up
Right.
and through. So it's
Right.
not in the past. It's present. It's here right now.
Mhm.
And so just to be able to like feel that and allow myself to feel it and express
Mhm.
was what that needed to clear itself out. But I think I share that example because I think a lot of us do that, or that's kind of the default to like, oh, it's okay. Or like you're saying that like to brush it away. That's in the past. It's done. It's over.
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah, the subconscious mind lives in the body, and
Mhm.
the subconscious mind doesn't understand time. It doesn't know time. And so yeah, the story may not be present, but the feeling, the what's happening in this current moment is reminding our subconscious body, our subconscious mind. I'll interchange the two. It'll remind us of a time that we had experienced in the past that we've been trying to avoid
Mm.
in some way. And so then we end up in pattern. So whatever pattern we used over time to avoid it, it was a strategy that was created for survival, and then that survival pattern ends up getting it becomes outdated, it's obsolete, but we don't know how to rewire that pattern. And so what I find a lot of times is, so the frame that I hold is uh, I have thoughts and feelings, and my feelings are valid, and I have authority over my feelings.
Mm.
So how do I maintain uh, being present and loving them while maintaining that authority over them? Like I have power.
Mhm.
Like the great I am has the power over my thoughts and feelings, and not letting it sweep us away, but also not s- having authority by suppressing it, right? Treating
Right.
the thoughts and feelings as children and going, oh, you're sweet. I acknowledge you. You know, you're secure. I've got you. This is not the same situation we were in the past. And whether you have the capital T trauma that a lot of times people associate this conversation with, there's also the little traumas. You want to see uh, a 4-year-old, you want to see their world come crumbling down. Just pull that fire truck away from them, and they're going to throw a fit, right? And so, uh, I think where adults get a little confused, it's very nuanced. They get a little confused is, okay, if I'm having this feeling, am I supposed to express this,
Mhm.
or or is it welcome to express it? And uh, the way I look at it is, you want to be able to be present with that emotion, but express as an adult, not as the 4-year-old who is hurt. And so that's where I think a lot of times we're in relationships and someone's like, hey, that's not present anymore, or that's in the past. And it's like, well, it's not for my subconscious mind, but I haven't learned how to express it from a place of authority yet. And so it's how do I express this in a way that's healthy and moving things forward? Because I think that one of the things I've been in the personal development world for, I guess it's been 11 years now, and I interacted with some programs that people were holding, and I was noticing that a lot of people were coming out of these programs very self-expressed,
Mm,
but they were they were self-expressing their wounds all over the place.
yeah.
And so they were going out and they were like, well, I was suppressing, but now I'm expressing, and I go, well,
Full pendulum
great,
swing.
great. But it's like, but now you're just hurting people by with your expression. And so um, that's why I say it's nuanced. There's this, it's like, how do you, it's not about finding a balance. It's about letting that energy flow and transforming it into something that's actually useful. And that's, I wish I could tell people exactly how to do that through a podcast, like
Right.
30 minutes. But I like to have that distinction because a lot of times people go, "Oh, I'm not supposed to express, but I'm not supposed to suppress." I'm really confused about what I'm supposed to do. But that's why coaching exists.
Hmm. Oh, I agree. I think that that sense, I think anger
Mhm.
is one feeling in particular, one emotion in particular, um, that there's an interesting I've noticed an interesting balance with that too of, you know, expressing it and expressing, especially on the feminine side, expressing female rage and expressing, right? Like all of these things that we have been suppressing for a long time. But just like you said, like if we let the pendulum swing all the way to the other side and just rage at people all over the place, then we aren't moving any conversation forward in any meaningful way. We aren't, to your earlier point, finding any sort of peace,
Mhm.
right? If we are again, like just letting like rage fires burn
Mhm.
rather than transmuting that. And so like finding the meaning, finding the like there's truth in there. There
Mhm.
is a truth in our emotion. There's truth in our anger. There's truth in our grief. There's truth in our sadness. And right, like what that exactly what you're saying, that sense of like sitting with it, allowing it, feeling it, and then expressing from a place of the healed or the healing adult,
Mhm.
your wise self, your um you know whatever age you are right now self versus your 4 or 7 or 14-year-old self,
Mhm.
right?
Anger
That's peace.
anger is an opportunity for ownership. So we may find that when we get angry, there's a lot of blame.
Hmm.
Anytime we're angry and the blame is going out, there's an opportunity for ownership. And finding ownership in the moment of anger is a really, it's a big challenge. But anytime I'm getting angry anymore, which has become less and less, uh, is because uh, and that's due to finding ownership sooner and sooner when
Hmm.
I feel it's coming up. What am I not owning in this moment? What am I um, when that pendulum swings and I go, oh, I can express my anger, and then people go out and burn buildings down, or we see it socially, right? People get angry and then they project that anger out onto the world, and uh, and if blame is present in any way for our emotional state, then we have opportunity to own it. Now, that doesn't mean that we make everything happening outside of ourselves okay. Our ownership may mean I'm no longer going to participate in this conversation. I'm not going to participate in this relationship. I'm not going to there, or I am going to participate in a very different way than I've been participating. So there's a choice, and usually when anger this is the emotion we're talking about right now. When it's present, uh, we tend to revert back to a childhood experience of that anger, and getting ourselves to ask ourselves the question, what am I not owning right now? If someone outside of us were to ask us that, it would just turn into a big F you. It's like, now I'm blaming you too.
Right.
So it's a practice of asking ourselves, like, what am I not owning, and what can I own?
So from that, like kind of steering back towards the topic that we wanted to kind of cover today of, what's happening on the inside is, you know,
Mm-hmm.
what's happening, what you're seeing on the outside, right?
Mm-hmm.
Those are directly related to each other. How can how can we begin to own that more fully, right? I think that's one of the pieces with the what's happening on the outside. So when I'm working with people on, understanding their financial place where they are right now, there tends to be a lot less. I don't experience as much anger. It's more guilt and shame
Mm-hmm.
that people will experience,
Mm-hmm.
shoulds, lots of shoulds of like, I
Mm-hmm.
should be somewhere different from where I am right now. Or, every once in a while it'll be, I worked with someone and they, didn't do the right thing. That will come up occasionally, but more often than not, it's someone who wants to create more financial stability
Mm-hmm.
or more financial success. And they are wanting to kind of shut down the things like I don't want to make these mistakes anymore. And so for me, one of the big places that we look at is, where are those feelings coming from? Where is that
Mm-hmm.
shame and guilt coming from? And how can we love all of those pieces of you
Mm-hmm.
that
Yeah,
got you to
there's
where you are right now?
yeah. So I split consciousness up into two. We have the masculine and the feminine. The masculine being the cognitive, the our language, and the feminine being the emotions and the feelings, and these two energies are talking to each other and dictating each other. And so, if we're talking about what I should have done or what isn't true, step one is, instead of saying like, "Oh, we just need to change our mindset about this." Uh, I wish if it were that easy, everyone would be a billionaire.
Right.
But yeah, just, you know, uh, some billionaire would come out and say, "This is how I think about money. This is how I think about it." And you go, "You know what? I'll adopt that." You
Right.
know?
Simple as that.
Yeah. And so, uh, step one is, get in touch with reality. And so, I've got like a little formula I like to run. One is get in touch with reality. And you can tell if you're out of touch with reality if you're talking about, what did not happen, what is not happening, what should have happened, anything that is a negation. And so what I mean by negation is anything that has the word not in it. And so someone makes a mistake. You were talking about this. I was thinking, you're talking about the shame and guilt, and I literally, in my gut, I felt a little bit of contraction happening. And when you said, uh, I should have done something differently, right? I am currently experiencing in my 3D reality a I look back at this. I was doing a real estate deal, and I look back on it, I go, "Oh, had I done the deal like this versus this, I'd be making money right now. But instead, I'm losing money right now."
Mm.
And so, as you were saying that the story came up, the memory come up, I feel the feeling in my gut. And I just breathe with it. I say, "You're okay. You're safe. We're here." And uh, even though I teach this stuff, I still get to coach myself through it, and I have someone else outside of myself that helps me through these things. But first step is getting present with reality. And so instead of being about what didn't happen, let's talk about what did happen.
Mhm.
What is true? Someone may have a poor relationship with their dad. They're mad at their dad about something. Well, he didn't go to my baseball game. He didn't do like all he didn't show up for me. Okay, well, what did he do? I mean, he may have only been a sperm donor, but if we only focus on what did happen, then there's room for gratitude.
Mhm.
And if you're stuck in what did not happen or is not happening, that is pure illusion. It is not the truth. The truth is what is. The illusion is what is not or what was not. And so first we find reality, and then we have the opportunity to own the reality. So I could say, okay, they did do that, and we go, okay, well, what did you do? Oh, I did that. So okay, now I'm getting in touch with reality. Oh, I did that. And then what you may notice when you move from a place of being in the illusion of what didn't happen while also blaming. So you're in the illusion and you're projecting. So you're projecting an illusion onto other people. And now you have opportunity for blame. You know, you might feel guilty yourself. And then you go, oh, this is what I did. Not what I didn't do, what I did do. Okay, I did these things. Okay, great. And when I like to do this with writing prompts, and someone is writing out their story of what didn't happen, financially. Oh, this didn't, okay, we're gonna change that all to, uh, first I'm gonna change it. We're gonna take out the knots and talk about what did happen, and then we're gonna change it to not what other people did, but we're gonna change it to what I did or am doing. And then every step of that, the emotional weight begins to lift. And then we get to a place of, well, what are we doing now? And what are we doing from now on? And then the world of possibility opens up, and now that feeling of guilt, shame, whatever it is, begins to lift, and now we're in a new state. So we shift our state in that way. So that's a great way to solve in the moment.
Mhm.
Now, where why that pattern exists in the first place, that's a different conversation. A lot of times, what we can do is while I'm going through an exercise with somebody and say, hey, all right, I want you to tap into that feeling, right? So I may handle it cognitively. Like that's a cognitive exercise. We're acknowledging the emotional thing, but we're changing the story to become more
Mhm.
accurate. We're getting more present with reality. But then we go, well, that doesn't change that tomorrow when I wake up, I'm not going to have that feeling. And now there's an emotional pattern and there's a cognitive pattern. And this emotional pattern, because there's emotions that we are really friendly with, and guilt and shame are, people may say they don't like them, but they entertain it a lot. And
Right.
so if we want to, for me, the magic is, yeah, we can solve real quickly at the cognitive level, but let's go a level deeper. Let's get real present with that feeling. And then from there we can actually map out, well, when did that feeling begin? And you're not gonna think your way to that when that feeling, that energetic, I talk about energetic, so it'll be like emotions and energy. I'll use interchangeably. When we get to that energetic pattern, because energy is our first language. Most people,
Mhm.
I go, what's your first language? They go, well, it's English or Spanish or whatever. And I go, no, it was energy. It's emotion. Uh, the word emotion comes from the Latin root of emotere, energy and motion.
Mm.
And before we have words, we have emotion. That's how we communicate. And that's how we understand what's happening in our environment. And that's how we ask for things or express our desires or fears or whatever it is. And so we create energetic patterns, and then we learn the words, and then those are cognitive patterns. And so now we have, this is why everybody is so different and their perspective is so different, is because everyone has a different energetic pattern, and they have a different cognitive pattern, and then the cognitive pattern is resting on top of this energetic pattern. And so we go down to the energetic and we go, well, what's the pattern that runs in this type of situation? When this type of thing happens in your life, this energetic pattern runs. You're not going to talk your way there. That's why a lot of times people go, well, I've been going to talk therapy for so long. And I go, well, you can only do cognitive work in a talk therapy scenario. What's happening energetically? What's happening
Mhm.
somatically? And so then we can dig into, okay, let's get so present with that emotion. It's the only thing that exists. And then what memories start to emerge, and then we can uh, teach ourselves to be present with that emotion, and we can feel it all the way through. Um, uh, uh, I'm remembering his name. Let's see what Joseph Campbell. So Joseph Campbell. Uh, uh, if you've ever looked at the hero's journey and all that stuff, he was the
Mhm.
one that was made that popular and created that line of psychology. And he has a quote that is really just landed for me: is any feeling felt all the way through is bliss. And
Mhm.
so if anybody is ever going, well, we're investigating this feeling, we're investigating this emotion, and we're being curious about it, and someone will go, oh yeah, I really feel it. And and I know that they felt it all the way through, and when you feel it all the way through and you get to that place of bliss, that's when that's the opportunity to shift the energetic pattern to where
Mhm.
now everything in your life has to reorganize. So when you shift that energetic pattern, the cognitive pattern is, the next day you'll wake up and go, I have to rearrange my thoughts are rearranging. I don't know what's happening with them. This is where like integrating an experience like that goes. And then you wake up the next day with a new energetic pattern, and now I'm not experiencing the same feelings, which means I'm not experiencing the same thoughts. Now I'm behaving differently, and the entire universe has to rearrange itself around me. It has to. Now, what what tends to happen is someone may have an experience where they'll go to a retreat, or they go to a Tony Robbins conference or whatever it is, and they get all empowered and they feel different because they're in the novel environment. They're outside of a lot of other patterns, which is, I'm a big fan of going to retreats. Um, and the key is what you get to realize is that the rest of the world doesn't know that you had a transformation. The rest of the world doesn't know that you've had a shift. You have to let the rest of the world know.
Mhm.
And so you probably heard, like, you're the writer, director, and star of your own movie, right?
Right.
You're a character in your own movie. And uh the thing about that, you can rewrite the script, you can change the scene, you can change your character. And other people are the writers, directors, and stars in their own movies too. And you're a character in their movie. And so if you have some type of energetic and cognitive shift, and you now break character in their movie, you may be really excited about this new character you're creating, right? Yeah, I'm making a new choice. I'm not making a choice out of old patterns. I'm making a new choice. And then you go out and then you break character. Well, most people really don't like it when people in their lives break character, and they're going to unconsciously try to get you to be the character that they're familiar with.
Right.
Because if a character in their movie changes, their whole script has to be rewritten. And
Mhm.
this is where in the personal development, spiritual development world, they're like, yeah, you actually get to be the change, and you have no idea the impact it's going to have on other people. Because if I now force somebody to rewrite their script, now they have to go do their own work, whether they
Mhm.
want to or not. And so, or they'll leave. It's usually one of two things. They either get curious or they leave. And they go,
Mm,
I don't like this pattern, interrupt. I'm going to go find somebody who's going to replace your character. I'm going to find someone who's like you. This is why people end up in the same relationship over and over and over
mm,
again.
yeah.
It's like, man, I always date the same type of woman and it always ends the same way. I go, well, no kidding. Like you're looking for a character and you actually this whole thing's going to play out until we get to the deeper root of what's going on. And so we the work is I'm going to be in my new character making a new choice and everyone else gets to rearrange around me. And so holding that power, we talk a lot of people talk about personal power. I mean, that's the personal power at play. But a lot of people, they get home from the retreat, they get home from whatever it is they're doing, and they go, wow, I really tried to change, but my environment didn't really let me. Like it seemed like the world was against me and
Mm,
whatever it is I was trying to do. And for sure, anytime you experience transformation, I had a lot of coaches tell me this, which is you're going to be tested when you go home.
yep, that's right.
And it sounded so like ethereal for me at the time where I go, okay, this being up in the sky is going to say, well, he experienced a transformation, so I now got to go test him. It's like, no, it's very scientific. Everybody is having their experience, and you're going to go and you're going to disrupt their experience, and then they're going to try to keep you in the same spot. And so your work is to is to maintain your own sovereignty. Like I am, and what I mean sovereignty is like I am the king of my kingdom, or I am the queen of my queendom, and everyone else can do whatever it is that they're doing, but I own this. And when
Mhm.
you really get into ownership of it, then magical things happen. I tell my clients look for small miracles. If they've never done this type of work before, I look for small miracles because that's going to create momentum.
Mhm.
Uh, if sometimes people go and have they'll have a psychedelic experience, or they'll go to a somatic experiencing retreat, or they'll go to something where you're working at that level, and then they come back and it can be difficult. But if they have the right tools and they can own their transformation, then things rearrange. Money may start flowing in the bank account. There's like levels to the money game. Like the money, like I keep getting to new levels in the money game. And being in a relationship with my fiance, and like we were playing different money games when we got together,
Yep.
and then she would trigger things in me, and then I'd watch myself contract around money, and then she'll have some type of transformation, and then I find I'm like, oh, I'm actually playing into a small money game. So I'm not actually owning my sovereignty right now. So it's this constant vigilance, which some people may hear that and go, well, that sounds exhausting, but it's work, and it's worth it. And I've witnessed shifts in myself. I've witnessed shifts in her. I've witnessed shifts with clients where all of a sudden, I had this happen last month, went through a really big shift internally around uh, money, like another level. And I noticed that there was this bit of contraction that was happening in my body, even though something we were I could tell I had some type of transformational shift. My fiance had some type of transformational shift, felt different, felt really good, felt really expansive and uncomfortable. So
Mhm.
when we're experiencing a different feeling of the world, it can feel wrong, and but it's really just different. I mean, having this different experience, I go, breathe into it, relax into it. This is a place of peace. This is good. And as I started acknowledging it and more, gaining more comfort and familiarity with this new feeling of expansion, I don't think I've had a day go by where somebody hasn't sent me money in like 2 weeks. It
Amazing.
and like and there was a day where I was like, "Oh, I didn't get any money today," and then I get a check in the mail. Like so, my life insurance company was like, "We ran an audit on your account last year, and here's $47." I'm like, "There it is. That's the money for the day." And, it's just fascinating. It's like anytime I start to doubt that 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 the external world will shift based on my internal world, I'll experience some type of internal shift, and I get reminded, "Oh, yeah, I'm the creator of this moment and the next moment and every moment hereafter."
Mm. Oh my gosh, we could absolutely go on longer and talk more about relationships and how, like, that's one of my favorite topics is how our money stories hit into each other,
Oh,
right? So,
yeah,
like, all of
totally.
oh my gosh, there's so much patterning that happens around money and safety and all of that, and in relationship, we tend to draw someone, right, who's going to
Mhm.
actually, like, needle on our stories so that we can poke holes into them,
Totally.
right? And
They're
it's
there for our growth.
yes, yeah, but we'll have to save that for another conversation, so
And when you get aligned, if and when you get aligned with a partner and you're in it together, whoa, it is not 1 plus 1 equals 2.
no.
It's like infinity.
This power couple status right there,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
Yes, yeah, it feels so empowering. I have experienced that exact same thing. And it's been a long journey. It's been a long growth journey. With me and my husband, and yeah, we'll have to have another conversation sometime to go into that because that's I think relationship is such a powerful place to look. And I know when I'm working with couples, it's one of the biggest things that we have to talk about is each person's experience of money and
Mhm.
what they want individually. And yeah, oh my gosh, we could talk so much about that. But since we want to make sure we like don't let this go on for too long, it's not a 3-hour podcast, maybe one day. I would love, right, for you to be able to tell people how to reach you, what to look for. And I know you have your new podcast that by the time this is released, you'll have just dropped. So tell us a little bit about that.
That's right. Thank you. I have the Mission After podcast. It launches It'll be up June 12th, and, this is really a conversation for military veterans. I mean, the truth is, I think most people would get something out of it, and if you know a veteran, or you are a veteran, please come listen to the show. It's a little bit longer format. We do like 60 to 90 minutes. We get in deep. I interview guests who are veterans who have been able to find success in their with their family and in their careers. I also interview subject matter experts that have information that would help veterans that might be struggling in their transition out of the military. Um, veterans that have been out for a decade, I still work with them. So it's not just for, oh, I just got out. It's for everybody. So that podcast is launching. A lot of my attention is going into creating programs and coaching and mentorship for veterans. That's really where my heart is right now. And you can find me on so the website's themissionafter.org. My Instagram is Mike_Bledsoe. I do work one-on-one with high performing clients here and there, whether they're a veteran or not. And so I work with 3 or 4 people a year. So it's a one-on-one client container. Some of the things that we talked about here is the type of stuff that we work on. So I'm happy to answer any questions if you were to just reach out to me on Instagram.
Well, Mike, thank you so much for being here on the podcast. It was a joy to get to know you better. And yeah, just to have this space. There are a lot of veterans who are entrepreneurs.
Hmm.
And that's a big piece of coming back and trying to fit in and realizing, oh, maybe you don't quite fit in the same way anymore. And entrepreneurship it can be a big call. And so yeah, my hope is that this particular episode gets shared to especially to veterans. Like I said, I have family members who've been in the military. I think most most of us know either
Hmm.
a veteran or know someone who is.
Hmm.
So it's such a beautiful thing to share and to a message of hope and peace.
Yes.
So
Yes.
thank you so much. If anyone has any questions, everything will be found below in the show notes. Um, and as always, if you have any other questions for me, you can send them to Hannah, Hannah, at expansiveceo.com. And if you have questions for Mike, you can absolutely get him at all the information in the show notes below. Thank you again for being here.
Thank you, Hannah. Appreciate it.
That's it for this episode. Thanks for listening, and be sure to like and subscribe. And again, if anything resonated with you from this episode, I would love to hear from you. Email me at Hannah, Hannah, at expansiveceo.com and tell me about it. And if you're ready for your greatest expansion, you can find ways to work with me at expansiveceo.com and at x2wealthplanning.com. That's X, the numeral 2, wealthplanning.com. So until next time, remember that there is enough, you are enough, and your birthright in this lifetime is to be expansive.